All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the special webinar edition here. This is the favorite Wi-Fi things webinar here, kind of wrapping up the year. And thought we'd finish it up, kind of reflecting back a little bit on the year and some, looking at some recent additions that have been made to the Ekahau tools and talk about some of those features and talk about, really we want to hear from you guys on what some of your favorites are. So get those thoughts rolling. Think about, when you're designing Wi-Fi, deploying, maintaining Wi-Fi, what are some of your favorite things that you find helpful to do that, and go ahead and put those in chat. But yeah, before we get into things here, let's just kind of lay, talk about some of the housekeeping items. So you're going to be in a listen-only mode if you haven't been on one of these webinars before, but we do utilize the chat pretty heavily. So go ahead and locate that chat box. You can send messages to all of us panelists here or to panelists and attendees, and then everybody can kind of chime in on the conversation here. We also have a Q&A box, so locate that. That's the best way to make sure if you do have a question that we don't lose it in the chat as it scrolls by, and that way people can also see those questions that get submitted and upvote them if somebody else likes that question or also has that question as well. Makes it a lot easier for us. So yeah, go ahead and locate those, and let's go ahead and kind of get things rolling here. So first thing, let's kind of do a quick round of introductions, but really as far as the agenda goes, we're going to talk about a few of our favorite things. And when I say our favorite things, yeah, let's go around and kind of introduce ourselves of who's all on the line as far as panelists goes. So starting things off, I'm Jerry Ola, one of the product managers here. Joel, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. My name's Joel Crane. I'm I don't know, my job title here at Ekahau is technical training manager. I don't think the manager part's necessary, but there it is. And yeah, I do basically take care of all of our kind of internal training stuff, like making YouTube videos and things like that. So I'll pass the ball next to Clayton.
How's it going, everyone? I'm Clayton Matthews. So I'm the sales engineer here for North America. Chances are, if you sat on a demo in the past few months, it was run by me. So over to Nick.
Nice. Yes, very similar story over here. Holding down the fort in the UK, operating here as a pre and post sales technical engineer. Yeah, whatever. All round good egg is my Wi-Fi title this week. That's my business cards that I had printed just for this week. I change it each week. So
nice.
New business cards every week.
Of course.
Nice. Excellent. All right, right on. Well, yeah, thanks for hopping on, guys, and picking out a favorite Wi-Fi thing to talk about. Like I said, we'll cover our favorite things, but ultimately through this webinar, the hope was to hear from you guys, from the audience. What are some of your favorite tools to kind of give you some ideas. Let's take a look at some newer features that have been added to Ekahau, and this might stem up some ideas of what some things that you really like in the Ekahau tool suite, but doesn't need to be limited to that. I've seen already a couple of things in chat around Wi-Fi Explorer. We should have some time to kind of talk about that, and that'll actually tie in with some of the other favorite things that we're going to be talking about. So yeah, let's talk about some of these new features. So looking back, starting with ESS 9.0, that came out right at the end of actually last year. Yeah, there was quite a few new additions with ESS 9.0, and then we'll kind of progress through there. But 9.0 was really focused around capacity planning. That was really what stemmed it. So you can kind of see what was, from a market standpoint, what features or needs there were, as we've kind of come up with these different releases. So yeah, end of last year, capacity was a really hot item and obviously continues to be. So really focused a lot on enhancing the capacity planning capabilities in the tool, overhauling the auto planner feature to help with that, and as well as improving the channel planner. New capacity visualizations, and also really enhancing the whole ability to define areas within areas and provide different coverage requirements, capacity requirements throughout a building. And then you also have ESS 9.1, That added some, it really enhanced the survey capability of the tool, specifically adding that's when the Sidekick was released. So that really was the focus on there, was also bringing the Echo site survey for Mac OS out of beta. With the addition of the Sidekick allowed us to do that. And then as part of that, also improve the real-time frequency monitor, the RTFM 2.0. So we'll demo some of these kind of features, but the last thing to be kind of major release was ESS 9.2, and this is kind of a miscellaneous update of different things. Added Bluetooth planning capabilities, some new coverage planning visualizations to improve speed, and then also some interesting ones like interference detection that was added as a beta feature and still is in the current version as a beta feature, and we'll maybe can show you a little demo of how that works and how to access that beta feature. That's kind of a hidden beta feature. Then another one that was kind of a, more of a smaller thing in the sense of, visualization, but really has a huge impact is device offset capabilities. With the Sidekick, that allowed us to create this kind of standardized measurement now with, using a standardized device and then be able to offset those measurements. So I think that's been a really popular feature. But yeah, we want to hear from you. Anything jump out of this list, or maybe something that's not on this list that, you really find useful and helpful.
Yeah, I don't think it even needs to be something about Ekahau. We're all wireless engineers. I don't know if I can make that claim, but we all enjoy wireless a lot. And so I think I think that this could be more than just stuff that's in Ekahau too. I think we're excited about anything that has happened in the wireless community, any tools, any stuff like that. So we'd love to hear your feedback on that. What you guys are excited about for what happened this year.
Yeah, I'm seeing a couple of kind of upvotes for the interference detection. So let's make sure we call that out, Joel. I think probably with what you're going to be talking about, maybe you can do a quick demo on that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't know, where do you want to start?
Well, yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, submit those favorites, what some of your favorites are. But I say let's dive into the tool, and we'll keep watching the chat here to kind of add those to the list as we're going through some of our favorites. Yeah, Joel, you want to kick things off talking about your favorite?
Yeah, absolutely. So as many of you know, spectrum analysis is very, very near and dear to my heart. I just love spectrum analysis. I think it's a lot of fun. It's kind of where I got my start in the world of wireless. And of course, I love the spectrum analyzer that's on board the Sidekick. Now, I don't want to make this sound like some salesy thing where, I try to sell you the thing and stuff. I just really love I love spectrum analysis, and the spectrum analyzer on the Sidekick is just wicked fast and wicked sharp and wicked clear. And so there's some stuff I'd love to show you with the spectrum analyzer I think is just really, really cool. I think what I'll start with, one of my favorite places to start when I'm doing spectrum analysis is to talk about how we can see Wi-Fi with it. So one thing I'm going to do just for fun here is I've got my old Android phone here. This is an old little $60 Blue. And downstairs, Jerry's going to talk about this in a while, but I've got the older version of the WLAN Pi downstairs, the old Odroid C2 based one, running an iPerf server. And so one thing that I love to do is just run iPerf and look at what wireless looks like on a spec AN. So I'm going to pop out the full RTFM view. That stands for real-time frequency monitor. No, not something else. That's what it stands for, is real-time frequency monitor. And I'm just going to run an iPerf throughput test here. And I just love, I don't know why, but it's just something really fun about looking at an OFDM signature on a spec AN, especially on something nice and sharp and clear like this, So when you're looking at Wi-Fi on a spectrum analyzer, one thing that I love about it is you can tell what basic data rate is in use. You can get an idea for which data rates are in use just by looking at the shape. So for example, that kind of flat tabletop shape that you saw right there, that flat tabletop shape is an OFDM rate. So that's going to be a data rate of 6, 9, 12, 18, 24 megabits per second and beyond. I won't list them all off. But if you see a curve shape like this little guy right down here, that indicates that is an 802.11b data rate. So that's a data rate of 1 to 5.5 or 11 megabits per second. Now, I just think it's super cool that you can look at a spectrum analyzer and immediately know what kind of data rates are in use. You're not going to figure out an exact data rate like you would get with a packet analysis tool, but you can at least get a pretty rough idea. Another thing that I love to show off in this environment and this is actually one reason why I use a Bluetooth mouse and keyboard, is it's fun to look at Bluetooth on a spectrum analyzer. So I'm going to hide all of our APs really quick. And notice all these really tall spikes everywhere. There's all these random little tall spikes. Those are all Bluetooth hops from my Bluetooth mouse and keyboard. So if I show, let's look at a waterfall view so we can see what's happening over time. Each one of these little red blips right here, each one of those is basically a Bluetooth hop. So you can see Bluetooth hopping around all over the place, and I just think that's really fun. So anyway, this is just one of my favorite things in Wi-Fi is looking at stuff on a spectrum analyzer and seeing what's going on. Yeah, Jerry, go ahead.
Could you do that speed test again? And this time, let's see if we can get down to like a subcarrier level. That's one of my favorite things about the spectrum analyzers. The resolution is detailed enough that we can actually see the individual subcarriers. Like that was pretty mind blowing to me when I first saw this. Of like seeing it live and in action. It's one thing to see kind of like actual like I don't know screen grabs or something like that, like of these high end really expensive spectrum analyzers, but the fact that we can have this portable spectrum analyzer that gets down to that like subcarrier level.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know. Yeah, being able to see the individual subcarriers, we can see where the nulls are. It's just really, really cool to actually be able to see this. I've got my my iPerf is set for way too short here. I think it's only like a 5-second test or something like that. But really, really cool to see exactly what's going on. And for me, this kind of opened up my understanding about how OFDM works. I forget who explained it, but somebody explained it to me once. Is like each one of these subcarriers is a guitar string, right? They're each playing a different note. Basically, each one of those is transmitting a different symbol, and that's how we get so much data through the air all at the same time. I could just go on and on and on about how this stuff all day, how cool it is, and how neat it is to be able to visualize this and actually see what is happening.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I don't know. Anything else I should point out while we're talking about SpecAm before we move on, guys?
Interference detection. You want to
interference detection?
Show where to turn that on.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that really quick. So, one thing that's coming in Ekahau is if you hold down, I'm the mash random keys here till I figured out. Oh, I got it right. If you hold down, I think it's the Alt key in Windows and the Option key on Mac OS. When you click on the little Sidekick battery indicator here, you can enable experimental interference detection. So watch out. This is very much experimental. And actually, Glenn's on the webinar. Glenn's a good friend of mine. We were talking about this, a couple days ago, Glenn, I think. And so this is pretty cool because this will actually attempt to automatically call out interference. And while it is experimental and there might be some bugs here and there, should we try to, I don't know, Jerry, should we try out the little camera, the drone camera?
I don't know if it'll be in your signatures. There is a signature database that hasn't been pushed yet that will detect it, but we could try it.
Okay, well, it's beta, right? So if it doesn't work, we can just say it's beta, and everyone will have to be okay with that, I guess. Is that a solid plan? I don't know. If I can figure out how to get it plugged in. It's a terrible idea.
And just to clarify, Josh did in chat there, but it's control, holding down the control key in Windows. So you hold down control. Click on the Sidekick, and it'll bring up that experimental feature that Joel's demonstrating here. And then on Mac OS, it's the Alt Option key.
Nice. Thanks, Josh. I'm an idiot when it comes to Windows. Okay, there we go. So I plugged in the camera here. Yeah, it doesn't look like we're getting the camera. Let's see. So I do need to show interference here. So there'll be a new menu that'll pop up right there. Show interference. Yeah, no camera. We'll have to get that added in there. So anyway, that is an experimental feature that you can enable in Ekahau today. So if you want to check it out, go enable that and see what shows up. And we'd love to get your feedback on that.
Take a look at the 2.4 side, Joel. See if anything pops up on that side, just to be able to demo kind of what that looks like if it does detect something. There we go. We got something showing up there. So that's what you would be seeing as it's detecting a signature that it matches in the database. It's going to flag in red there, saying, "Hey, there's something going on here that's not Wi-Fi," and it's going to give some educated guess, matching these signatures of, maybe this is a camera, maybe this is a microwave oven, give you some indication of what that device might be. And that's really why it's still in beta, is we're working on improving that database and, the accuracy of that detection. But if you've got a Sidekick, so we should make sure that we specify that you do have to have a Sidekick for that feature to work. But if you've got a Sidekick, you can enable that. That's available in any ESS 9.2 version that was introduced.
Yeah, and I love how it calls out, what happened in the waterfall. Now, this is a false positive here. That's not actually a video camera, but, like I said, this is, and we get a baby monitor one here. So trial by fire here, right, Jerry?
Yep.
So I love how it calls out, that there was an event in the whole spectrum. And so looking forward to seeing looking forward to seeing this feature become more mature, get a little bit more fine tuned. And so we can really take advantage of it.
Oh, there's a question from Raymond around when will spectrum recording be available? So that is something that is kind of further down the roadmap, but there has been some kind of clever ways of working around that, even though it doesn't specifically do probably what you're after of spectrum recording, where you just hit like a record button and just record the timestamps. However, with really importing any floor plan, you could start a continuous survey and essentially accomplish that, and you do get the timestamps that you can play that back through. So yeah, kind of a workaround until there's an official feature for that. Start a continuous survey, and I've done this where I've let a continuous survey run for hours and then come back and right click stop the survey, and now you can play that back essentially as you have like a jog dial, right, where you can kind of scroll through that and see all that spectrum data recorded. So all that does get recorded during your continuous survey to play back later.
So I just told Ekahau that I walked down a hallway, and this hallway I happen to know is like 3,000 miles away from me. But I'm just walking down the hallway, right-click to end the survey, and then if I open up the survey inspector, and this is a total hack, but it does work. Now we can basically go through that jog dial here, and this is basically my walk down the hallway, right? I didn't actually walk down the hallway, but we are basically looking at a recording, and so we can go back through here and find specific spectrum events. So total hack, but you could totally do that.
Yeah, you don't have to go all the way down the hallway either. You could do 2 clicks right next to each other if you wanted to perform a capture in a specific room. And you would just capture that, however, 2, 3, 4 hours worth of data and just put it in that one spot on the map.
So you could actually associate it to a map if you wanted to try to actually correlate that to a real life location.
Yep. Just make sure you click the second time before you right click, because otherwise you'll lose all your data.
That's true.
Good tip. Thanks, Clayton. So yeah, I think that's about all I have to say about spectrum analysis. I think if we've taken enough time with that. So I don't know, what should we talk about next, guys?
Cool. Clayton, you want to talk about one of your favorite things next?
Oh, I do. I do want to talk about my favorite thing, which is capacity planning. So I saw a question come up a little bit earlier about, how do you overcome customer objectives with capacity planning? Well, the simple answer to that is, if we look at this, I've got a small office design here. I've got 3 access points. For all intents and purposes, I've designed this to pass all my requirements. I've got great signal strength everywhere. If I go and look at my network issues, I don't have any network issues. So is this network really the best for my customer environment? If I count this out, I've got about 40 clients that can live in this environment. So what I'm going to do so that I can go and define capacity, because we have this capacity health visualization here, before I can do that, it says basically you have to tell us how many clients live here. So I go grab my requirements area, and I'm going to box in my my environment here. My mouse is a little sensitive today. There we go. Right click, and now I have a requirements area. So requirements areas are cool because we can go and define different sets of requirements in different areas. But for the purposes of this, what I'm going to do is go and edit this area, and you'll see I've got my devices in here. So I'm going to go and add some devices, and I counted it out at about 40 devices, right? So I say, okay, well, we got about 40 laptops in there. Where there's a laptop, there's probably a smartphone. And because I'm planning for 2.5 devices per person, I'm going to say, there's 20 tablet devices in here. So this gives me how many clients are in my environment. And now what I need to do is go and define their usage profiles. So keep in mind that when we're planning for capacity, we're not necessarily planning for what's going to happen on the network on a daily basis, but what's the maximum capability that the network could need, right? Everybody comes into the office Monday morning. They've left their work laptops closed all weekend, right? What's the first thing that Windows laptops are going to do? Oh, Windows Update says, oh, hi. Hey, there's a network there. I'm just going to go download all these updates. People watch YouTube, people stream music, right? The World Cup or the Final Four, sporting events happen, and people tend to use more bandwidth. So I say, okay, my laptops, yeah, we could take up to 10 megabytes per second, worst case scenario. Smartphones do the same sort of thing, you know? They hit a wireless network and they go, oh, hey, look, here's every application. There's 27 applications that haven't been updated. I'm going to go and grab those all at the same time, right? And tablets, I typically plan for something a little bit in between, but you can go, you'll notice, and configure usage profiles and say, hey, specifically, I'm going to go and add a profile and call it, you know, my custom profile, and say, I need to add some applications to this. So I think in the background, you know, it might be taking 2 megs per second, but I know that the CEO or people in the office also like to do Link or Skype, you know, or we could go and, you know, plug in Zoom in here. And this is also going to be used for VoIP, you know, so a very low bandwidth requirement, but I've just specified that there's going to be a VoIP application in my network that completely changes my design requirements, right? So now that I have all this set up, I've got my coverage profile set up and the devices and how much bandwidth they're going to consume. I close this out and we can see I'm failing my requirements in every cell, right? And if I hover over an area, it tells me who, you know, what the clients are in each cell. Now Ekahau tries to intelligently spread them out based on the signal strength of each of my access points. So in this cell, I have 41 clients. Over here in this cell, I have a box that's not displaying properly. There we go, 16 clients. Right over here, I believe this is probably going to be 16 again, 18. So we've got 18 over here. Well, if I go back to my signal strength, for instance, right, and go and select an access point, this access point can be heard throughout the entire office. So as someone walks into the building over here, they probably connected to this AP, and if a client roams over to this area right here and they associate to this AP, now they can be heard everywhere. So capacity planning leads me, you know, maybe I need to potentially not disable that. There we go, enable. I need to edit this. We're going to go and turn this down to, say, you know, 5 milliwatts so that it can't be heard all throughout the office. Go back to our capacity health. I probably need to add more access points in here, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. You need some more APs.
Absolutely. So this is the kind of visualization that you can use to justify adding more access points, you know, to your customer. Hey, 3 APs aren't really going to do it at maximum capacity in rush hour. You know?
And customers have a tendency to do that, right? They have a tendency to say, like, well, how few of access points can we get away with? And that's why I think that modeling something up like this is so awesome, because you can say, well, yeah, sure, you'll have coverage everywhere, but you won't have the capacity to support all the devices and all the applications that you need to.
Absolutely. Yeah. Modern networks are planned for capacity, not necessarily coverage. And one cool thing is the auto planner now factors capacity into a plan. And so I can go and, you know, set certain things. Make sure you also have other capacity requirements in here, like how many SSIDs per radio. Are there going to be 2 SSIDs per radio? Well, not most environments that I've seen, right? More SSIDs means more management frames, which means more utilization. How many clients do we want on each radio? We'll say about 40, right? And now I can go and ask Ekahau to create this auto plan for me. And, well, we're passing in one cell, right? At least we're passing one cell, but if I go and hover the over, we're at about 54% here. So it's really, we're not really failing that bad. We can go and look at, like, hey, how many clients do we have per AP? And if I hover over one of these cells, it actually breaks down for me what devices are associated in that cell and what applications they're using. So that's capacity planning.
Awesome. Yeah, very good. Yeah, I agree with Joel. I mean, I think that's a huge win from the standpoint of, you know, going from a coverage-based design to why we need to design this for capacity. It's easy to just show, hey, we can paint the map green with signal everywhere, but we have no idea how many clients this is going to be able to support or where the network is going to break down. And yeah, so having some of these capacity planning capabilities is really helpful to visualize some of that.
And there's a comment from Eric that I'd like to kind of talk about for just a second, just to kind of game out a little bit here. Eric says, is ESS spreading the users evenly across the space? My understanding is that it is just basically checkerboarding all of the devices evenly across the map, and then it basically makes an assumption for which AP a client is going to be associated to based on, I don't know, it's probably SNR, right? Simulated SNR. Is that accurate, Jerry?
Yeah, it's based on using I think you can actually change the association logic that it uses, because different clients obviously do behave differently. I think in the past it actually used to be based more around data rate, what AP was advertising the highest data rate or simulating was going to be the highest data rate in that area. Now it's actually changed to signal strength, because that's what we found the majority of clients actually do use in their roaming algorithms and association algorithms of what AP they're going to associate to.
Right. Yeah. And let's see. Max says you can define multiple areas to define. And yeah, Max, you're absolutely right. You can define multiple areas if you want to say that, these clients are in this area, these clients are in this area. You can do that. I may be saying something that's not true, but I think Mitch at Loudoun County Public Schools, I think he defines a separate area for each classroom. And that way he can very, very closely control he say 30 Chromebooks in this classroom, 40 Chromebooks in this classroom, so on and so forth.
Yep. If I define an area within an area, you'll notice Ekahau kicked all the clients out of this area and put them into this area here. So just be careful if you're doing this, that you go and remove all the clients from this greater area that you're putting in this more, focused, smaller area here.
It's not like an additive effect. It's a kicking out effect.
Yep.
Yeah.
One other thing, if you want to show this, Clayton, to answer that previous question around the association logic, change the visualization to associated access point, which is going to show us the simulated, where these clients are associating from. And if you go to options, the visual options there, the drop down there, it should show you there you go, association mode. So predicted association is based on signal strength. And you could also use measured association if we did a survey, right? So the survey is going to trump the prediction if we go and do a survey of the environment, because now we're actually surveying and seeing what our internal client that we're using to do the active survey, what AP is that actually associating to? So it can either be a predictive, association or measured.
Yep. Interesting that we've got there's a client here and there's a client over here. I'd probably go and turn these access points down, right?
Yep. Cool. All right. Up next, I think, Nick, do you have a favorite thing you want to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. I will happily talk about report templates. What else?
Hang on a second. You're telling me that your favorite thing is report templates. I never would have guessed that.
I know. Mr. Original over here.
Is that really your favorite thing, Nick? Or are you just amusing the audience?
Is it actually my favorite thing Wi-Fi related? Probably not, but it's up there.
I talked about spectrum analysis, and I guess if we're gonna go that way, then I guess that talking about report templates, that should be what you do. So,
yeah, that's right.
Joel always talks about spec in. Nick always talks about report templates. What's new?
So, how do can I hide? No, I don't want to do that.
And by the way, everyone, I see lots of great questions coming into the Q&A tool. Some of those I'm able to answer live kind of as we go. Some of them I'm saving a little bit so we can kind of talk about them, once Nick is done talking about his favorite stuff and once Jerry's done here. So keep throwing those questions in there. We'll get to as many of those as we can. Thanks for engaging with us in this webinar. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, and also just a reminder that you can upvote those. So if you do see a question that it's like, I'd really like to see the answer to that one, make sure you upvote those, because if we run out of time at the end, we'll try and prioritize those accordingly.
Alrighty. So very quickly then, my spiel on the report templates is just all about how flexible you can be with report templates. And when it comes to generating report material in Ekahau, you've got three options. You've got the export image. It gives you your canvas as it looks right now, and then you get the opportunity to pick an image file type, directory, and give it a file name, okay? And you get an image file that looks exactly as your canvas does right now. Then We obviously know the one-click report, which ironically requires more than one click to produce. And you have the little check boxes there, which you can browse through and pick each chapter that you want to see inside your report document. However, the report templates allow you to script your output from your Ekahau project. And the best place to start with report templates would be within your installation. You want to go on your computer, you want to go to the documents folder, and then you'll have a folder called Ekahau Site Survey. And in there's a folder called Report Templates. And you get there one called Sample One Click. And that is essentially the source file of the one-click report. It's not actually the source file of the one-click report, because if you modify this, the one-click report mechanism will still work the same. But this is
just a copy of the one-click report template, right?
Exactly.
Could we call this like the deconstructed version of the one-click report? Would that be
quite a pretentious way of describing this? And I like it. So this is what I like to call a deconstructed one-click report template, often served with dry ice. And but what you can see though, as you go into this, is a breakdown of how the document, how this document is structured. And at a light level, at a high level, I could add my logo into the header, or we could change the text. We can change the boilerplate text here, reword this. You could change the language if you wanted to. So that is, you could change the order of the chapters. That is where I would start. But if this doesn't appeal to you, messing around with the tags and trying to learn how this works, the shortcut would be fire up your browser and head over to bit.ly/report-templates. I've tried to make that easy to roll off the tongue, but
I just stuck it in the chat. I don't even know if what I typed in the chat works. Oh, it does work.
Yeah, perfect. And so all of this is, though, at the moment, is a redirect to a Google Drive, and you can download the whole lot of example report templates here. This folder syncs to my laptop, so every now and then new ones will pop up in this list. These are also available on the support page from the Ekahau support with a knowledge base, but this link is live updating. So you'll find new ones in here. And so, for example, definitely check out, if you go for the template-one-click modified, that's only a minor alteration to the one-click report, but it's within Word. I've applied styles to the chapter headings and inserted a table of contents so that you've got that structure there for you. I think the thing that I'll just wrap report templates up with is just how flexible you can get with report templates. And a simple example of this would be, I was involved with a project where the customer wanted to see per AP heat maps. So 2.4 gigahertz, AP1, 5 gigahertz, AP1, and then AP2, 2.4 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz coverage, which is great if you have several days to do your report writing and you enjoy boring, laborious processes. If, however, that's not your thing, then report templates can dig you out of a hole here. And the template for this particular example would look something like this. Coverage per AP, per band, full page landscape. And this template document starts with a title page, table of contents, and then you've got a loop start type floors, overview, basically a map with all the AP locations on that, and then a loop start type APs. And then it's going to roll through the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz coverage for each AP individually. And then at the bottom of this example document, this example template, you've got the loop end type APs, loop end type floors. If we were to run this, but here's one that I prepared earlier, we have the report of the per AP per band document. you've got to do a right click and update the table of contents. I've already done that in this scenario here, but you get the idea that we can then get per AP heat maps generated nice and easily. So I've always thought about report templates as a way you invest some time up front making your template, you automate the report material generation. And of course, what really hinges here is it depends how important report material is to your workflow. I come into contact with customers who are not interested in generating report material. That's not what they get paid for. But then also I come from a background for working with VARs, and therefore I actually get paid for making the report documentation. I need to be on site to collect the data, but then it's the report, it's the deliverable that's important.
Timothy and I were talking about this a little bit in the chat, and what I kind of proposed that report templates are the most useful for is large teams, where you can dedicate one person to sit down and write a really good template. And when you look at this is JSON, right? I'm pretty sure it's JSON. When you look at it, it looks kind of scary, right? But when you break it down, when you break the tags down, they're actually very simple. It's really not that difficult to wrap your mind, even if you're not. I mean, I'm not a coder, right? That's not my natural thing. Same with you, yeah. But it's really not that hard once you kind of get the idea of how to, just the syntax of JSON stuff. It's pretty easy to go through the documentation and figure out how to put these together. And when you're done, you've got just a template that you can just run over and over and over and over again. And that hopefully will save a lot of time down the road.
Definitely. I like the fact that you can change various things. So you can restrict the size of the visualization. You can change the size of the AP spot. It's almost infinitely customizable, but there's still plenty of things you can't do in there. But there's lots and lots of things that you can, and that's what I'm focusing in on here.
And I would say that when it comes to building report templates, for me personally, like using Microsoft Word is kind of the hard part. Not to rag on Microsoft Word, but like that to me, like that's the part that like I just struggle with the formatting and things like that more than the actual tags and code and getting all of that working. But that's just me.
I guess the final thing, let me just show you this one. If you don't like the idea of trying to build all this from scratch, or you're a bit put off by it, what you can do is if you get the visualization looking the way you'd like it to, so let's maybe go to view, switch off the survey paths and hide those APs. If that's actually the visualization that you want to get in your report, you can go to reporting, template reporting, and there's an option here called copy current visualization template tag to clipboard.
And I use that all of the time, like all of the time.
Hop over to Word, paste, and there are the tags that make up that specific visualization. And it's pretty simple. It's a visualization. The type is signal strength, and it's filtered to show APs in the My AP group in the 5 gig band. Right, that's it for report templates for this session from me.
So Jerry, I think you're the only one that
I'm the one
hasn't told us your favorite things.
All right. Well, let's see if I can talk about my favorite things here. So let's move a few windows here so I can actually have some space to show this.
Jerry's favorite thing is window management in modern operating systems.
Actually, speaking of favorite things, if you don't know me, this is one of my favorite Wi-Fi things. I feel like this is a critical part of Wi-Fi design, right? Having a good cup of coffee accessible for those long days. Look at, Joel's with me.
Right there with you. Right there with you.
So yeah, coffee would be my number one favorite thing for good Wi-Fi. I think that's a requirement for anytime I'm designing Wi-Fi, I gotta have a cup of coffee nearby to keep me through drawing those walls and defining those requirements and placing those APs. But yeah, I want to talk about the WLAN Pi, since this is kind of my little pet project, since everybody's kind of talking about their things that they're known for. So this is what I'm talking about here, is this little WLAN Pi. This is really a pretty impressive little piece of hardware, I think. This is using similar to like a Raspberry Pi. but much smaller is the nice part about it. It's got a little screen on the front of it, so you probably can't see it on the video, but it's showing its IP address right now and a bunch of other information like CPU load, memory, disk space, all that kind of stuff on here. But what this is a little Linux computer. I've got an Ethernet connection plugged into the bottom of it here. That's plugged into a gigabit switch, and this little guy can actually do gigabit throughput. So the nice part about that is this is my little endpoint that'll drop onto some point of the network. Maybe at the head end of the network, if I want to measure all the way through, maybe multiple hops, multiple switches and routers in between here. As long as I can route to this guy, I can use this thing to do all sorts of tests on the network, from iPerf2, iPerf3, ZAP, which is Ruckus's SpeedFlex protocol. So you can do these tests from either a mobile device, Windows or iOS, or a tablet or an Android device, as well as Ekahau. So the other thing that's nice and what kind of really started this whole project was around the Ekahau ePerf and trying to make something that would run the ePerf protocol. So that's using kind of a custom version of iPerf 3. So if we go ahead and pull up Ekahau here, let me go ahead and just full screen this real quick so you can see this a little easier, hopefully. Actually, yeah, so can you guys see this okay on your end? Is it coming through all right? All right, so what I'm going to do is show you here, I've got the connected devices. I've got my Sidekick connected, but also I have my internal Wi-Fi adapter and Ekahau connected to my Wi-Fi network here. And I've got this configured to do a throughput test. And under the settings, I've already went ahead and plugged in the IP address that's displayed on my WLAN Pi. And in addition to that, since we're running multiple iPerf services on this WLAN Pi, I have to enter the port number of the specific iPerf instance that I want to run. So I'm running this against the ePerf instance, which on the WLAN Pi image that you can download from WLANPi.com, it's running on port 5202. So I put in a colon 5202, and now I'm all ready to do my performance testing during my survey. So let's just do a quick test, see if this is working. I'm going to do a TCP test. We'll do it in the send direction. You can configure your buffer length, your cycle time for how long it waits to kind of complete each test segment. And you can even specify a rate limit if we have a target that we're trying to see, or if you're doing like voice over Wi-Fi testing, which is a lot of times what I'd use this for, then I'd be doing UDP. Go back to here. Then I do UDP, and maybe I've only do something like, I don't know, 2 megabit per second, would be plenty for voice traffic, right? And then we can test and see if we're able to achieve that. Let's switch this back to TCP. We'll just keep everything defaults here for now, start a send test. And now I just hit this play button here, and up in the top right, we should see that throughput test going. And since I do have my Sidekick connected, let's actually see what that looks like on the Spectrum Analyzer. Pretty similar to what Joel was looking at earlier, but he was doing a speed test out to the internet. So I'm doing the same thing, except for I'm just keeping things local, right? So this is the same kind of concept of doing a speed test to like a speedtest.net, but now this time, switch back to 5 gigahertz here. This is doing a closed loop test, right? So I'm only testing from my laptop that I'm doing the webinar on through my local network, through my local switch here, and then to this WLAN Pi that I've got sitting on my desk here. So this is keeping a nice closed, kind of closed loop test for me. And now I can see my active survey results here as well.
So, Jerry, I have a question for you. When you specified the ePerf server, maybe for those I forget whether you explained this or not, but ePerf being our kind of special build of iPerf 3 that handles disassociating and reassociating clients while you perform your survey. So, in order to utilize the ePerf server that's on the WLAN Pi by default, you have to specify iPerf 3, and then you have to specify that special port number, right? Is that correct?
If you're using the WLAN Pi, yes. If you're just running the native throughput testing code, which if you go to ekahau.com/throughput, I think this URL is still valid here. Let's go ahead and pull that up. Yeah, it'll redirect you here to the ePerf download site for this, and you can download the ePerf code. So you don't need to have this WLAN Pi. This just makes it in a very portable, small, able to be battery powered package, or just USB powered. But you can actually download the iPerf 3 Ekahau package from the download site here. And I don't know, Joel, did you put that in chat?
Yeah, I just threw the ekahau.com/throughput in the chat. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. So, and then you can go to the throughput site, survey instructions here as well for more kind of details around that. But yeah, it's just a small zip package. This can run really on any Linux box or Windows. The only real requirement is that you need to have some kind of JRE environment, Java runtime environment set up to be able to execute that code, because it does have some Java that makes all that work. And what's the difference? I often get questions about, what's the difference between running the native iPerf3 code, because this actually is running the native iPerf3 code on here. The problem with the native iPerf3 code is it's not built to withstand things like roaming events and disconnects and reconnects that often are going to happen during a Wi-Fi survey. And what ends up happening is the server doesn't handle those events and it will crash. So it'll start off fine, and then as soon as you roam off the network or get disconnected, the server, the actual test, the server side of it crashes, and you have to restart the server to begin a new test. Where with the ePerf, it handles that gracefully and will just continue, as soon as you reconnect, it'll start a new test and just continue on from there.
Gotcha.
That's really what I've got. I don't know if we want to look at anything else on that side of it. Obviously, then from there, just like all of our other regular measurements, we can create heat maps based on that information. So we could pull up let's actually do that real quick, since we've got, I guess we're kind of running at the top of the hour here, but we're getting the next, if we have any other topics to line up here, I'll just pull up a throughput project.
And while you're doing that real quick, Alex Martinez has a question. To use the WLAN Pi, do we need to be Linux programmers to use it? Alex, the answer is nope, you do not. All you need to be able to do is to use Etcher to write a micro SD card, write an image to a micro SD card and plug it in, and then look at the IP address on the front of the WLAN Pi. It is exceptionally easy to use with just some minimal technical skills. You do not need to be a Linux person to do that, which I think is pretty rad.
If you really want to make it easy on yourself and don't even want to do that, you can pick up one from the Wireless LAN Pros online store, and they have them pre-assembled and pre-imaged for you. So literally they're ready to
plug and play.
Yeah. I'll pull up this project file here. Anything, Joel, we should get lined up next while I'm pulling this, showing the results here?
Yeah, well, there are some good questions in here I'd like to get to, but before we do that, kind of in the spirit of the holidays and stuff here, I want to ask the audience, what are some of your favorite things? Like I said earlier, this doesn't even need to be something Ekahau specific. This could be just kind of anything in Wi-Fi. If it's Ekahau stuff, cool. If it's not, cool. What are some of your favorite things, that some new tools, new additions, new stuff that's happened in Wi-Fi this year that you'd like to chat about? Let us know, and maybe it's something we can cover. Just go and throw some stuff in the chat. What do you think, Jerry?
Do we have any topics in there? Oh, I'm pulling up the project file right now.
Oh, very cool.
I need to end my throughput test to speed things up here. Let me stop that, and then I'll reshare my screen here.
So one that's consistently coming up as far as favorite things go, and I just don't think we can ignore this. And is a lot of people love the NetScout AirCheck G2, and I think it's a fantastic tool. People ask me all the time, like, hey, should I get a Sidekick or should I get a NetScout AirCheck G2? And you know what my answer is? Both. I want to have both. I have an old AirCheck G1. I don't have a G2. But would love to have one. So yeah, I'm with a lot of you guys there. Having a little handheld tool like that's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, Steven says both. Another one, a couple more that Josh brings up. Of course, Josh loves to have Wi-Fi Explorer by our good friend Adrian Granados. We love Adrian. Adrian's a good friend of ours here at Ekahau. Wi-Fi Signal. I don't have Wi-Fi Signal installed, but I need to get it. For those of you that don't know, Wi-Fi Explorer Pro is a nice Wi-Fi scanner for Mac OS. It's excellent. Just definitely go get it. You got to go get it. Wi-Fi Signal. I need to install it because I've never installed it and I need to use it. But my understanding is it gives you some kind of some information about what's going on with your MacBook as far as, what its data rate is, which AP it's associated to, things like that. Oh yeah, Jerry's got it up and running there. So you see Fish Networks on his screen. And then of course, AirTool by Adrian as well is free. and that allows you to perform wireless packet captures with your MacBook. Super, super easy to get a PCAP file. So those are all excellent. One that just came up that Hans just put in the chat as well is Wi-Fi Man from Ubiquiti, which I installed that yesterday at Hans' recommendation. Saw it on Twitter. Holy cow, that is an excellent little Wi-Fi scanner for Android. So if you've got an Android device, Hans just stuck that in the chat. Be sure to click on that, and I would definitely go check that out. So Adrian's disappointed that I don't have all of his tools installed. Sorry, Adrian. Shoot, he's here.
Well, since we got Adrian on here, let's plug Wi-Fi Explorer Pro. Before I do that, I'll just show you real quick, though. Here's my throughput results here of a previous survey using stop-and-go measurements. I think for throughput testing, this is the ideal way to do it, is the stop-and-go, because then you can actually control which AP you're associated to more. You could disconnect and reconnect your adapter when you go into an area or room to make sure you're not hanging on to a further away AP to really get those more accurate measurements. But yeah, here you can see we can hover over each one of these individual data points, and we can actually see what the throughput was in that area. Here we can see when we went into the stairwell here, for example, these tests either didn't meet their criteria or failed altogether, and we weren't able to actually complete the throughput test. So that gives you some good indication of where some problem areas are and actually measuring the client experience from a throughput standpoint. But yeah, let's real quick here talk about Wi-Fi Explorer, because I did see quite a few people even on Twitter mentioning this. And this is the default Wi-Fi Explorer Pro. Here is what I'm running. I can see all sorts of useful information about the networks around me. I really like how I can click on like individual network here, and you can go under advanced details, and it extrapolates all these really useful information that it decoded out of the beacon frames that tell you a lot of good information about the network, really helpful for troubleshooting. But one of the other things, since my favorite is the WLAN Pi, something that's maybe not as well known is this can actually be used as a remote sensor with Wi-Fi Explorer Pro as well. So
Jerry's always bringing it back to the WLAN Pi every time.
That's right.
Try to get away from it.
Shameless plug or something like that,
Yeah.
But yeah, I can plug in now that same IP address of the WLAN Pi, and we can use this as a remote sensor. So this is actually using actually I don't have a wireless adapter plugged in. That would help. But yeah, you plug in a wireless adapter into the WLAN Pi, put in the IP address now, and now for my list, I can choose that sensor, and it's going to scan the network around me. Since I didn't have the adapter plugged in when I turned it on, it needs to be rebooted. I believe.
Demo fail.
Yeah. But yeah, you can actually use this as a remote sensor. I'll just reboot it here while we're taking the next one.
See, like I said, you got to hash it out on the live demo.
That's how we do it around here,
One thing I'd like to mention, one of my favorite things outside of Ekahau are tools like Magic Plan and Distance on mobile applications.
Magic Plan. I don't know where you heard about that one first, Clayton. I heard about it from Jerry.
I believe I heard about it from the collective use guys. So
that is a pretty awesome tool. Yeah, Magic Plan allows you to create floor plans from literally nothing using ARKit on like an iPad or an iPhone. And for like a home or small office, it's pretty impressive. I was able to do a 2-story plan of my house in a matter of probably about an hour or two.
Yeah.
Actually have like a 3D model or 3D floor plan built of the house. So it's pretty slick.
Yeah, one of the big challenges for site surveying is like, well, you have to have a floor plan to perform a site survey. You cannot do it. Well, man, I was impressed. I mean, the geometry of my house is not simple. And in about an hour, I was able to walk around with Magic Plan and create a floor plan that's reasonably accurate. And if I had like a good little laser rangefinder or something like that to connect to Magic Plan over Bluetooth, my guess is that I could get it to be very, very accurate. So yeah, Magic Plan is just rad. Super cool.
Nice.
So should we go ahead and tackle some questions and things now and kind of work through that before we close out the webinar today?
Absolutely, yeah. Let's take the last 5 minutes or so here. I know we're already over a little bit, but if everybody's cool, stick around a little five more minutes, and we'll pound as many of these questions out as we can. Oh, actually, before I do that, let's kick off these. I got a couple of polls that I wanted to bring up for you guys. We're going to try this out. Looking at 2019 here, coming up fast. we wanted to ask the audience, what do you guys want to hear us talk about? So I'm going to bring up the first poll here around more industry specific. We've done some of these in the past, and check out the poll section there in Zoom. And yeah, we want to hear, what are some of the topics that you guys would like to hear? You can pick as many as you want, but yeah, we want to focus these topics on, what you guys are most interested in hearing about. Like I said, we've done some of these already in the past, but if you guys want to hear about them again, or if there's some that we haven't covered yet that you'd like to hear about, let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. So while you're working on that poll there, let's see. Jerry, do you see any, kind of scrolling through some questions here, you see any that we should tackle first?
Let me pull mine back up. I closed that window. Well, let's start at the top here and see if we've got anything we can cover real quick. Yeah, this is an interesting one on warehouse rack. So yeah, this is a kind of one of these topics that is more of personal preference almost than anything of how you define these warehouse racks. But let me go ahead and get a project file pulled up here so we can just demo this real quick. And I'll show you how I would handle this. I guess, kind of using the more old school format where I like to define warehouse racks as using the wall attenuation tool. The area attenuation tool can also be used, and that's kind of the newer method, I would say, of doing it. But I like the tried and true method, I guess you can say. To me, it makes a little more sense in my head when I'm visualizing that information, when I define that actually as a narrow wall down the middle of the rack. So let me show you how I would represent that in a varying height kind of ceiling that Andrew asked about. So it looks like the question here is, show how to draw a warehouse rack that is 25 feet high and a 30-foot high ceiling with rack shelving every 5 feet, and from the ground, one shelf starts 3 inches off the ground. Okay, so how I would represent that is, let me share my screen. All right, I've got my warehouse drawing here pulled up. Let me change this to empty so we can see this a little easier. And let's use the wall tool. And you can see this is already drawn for us here, but this is really the way that I would represent the racks. And you can see in this case, we're using these warehouse shelves that are 32 feet up, but let's use your example here. Really the ceiling height is going to be defined based on how high we set the APs. So in this case, I'm going to select all the APs and I'm going to edit them, and I'm going to say, all these selected antennas really is the more important factor here. We don't really necessarily care as much where the AP itself is, but from an RF standpoint, we care about where the antenna is. So let's say the antennas are mounted at 30 feet because they're basically on the ceiling. So we're going to set the antenna height to 30, and that's going to change that visualization height there. Oh, there we go, 30 feet for those. And then we're going to also change the warehouse racking here. So this is set to, 35 feet, I think, currently. So I'm going to go under my materials here, and we're going to set this warehouse shelf. This is the one we're currently using. So I'm going to go to the gear. We're going to edit the properties of this. And right here is the value we want to change. So I'm going to set that to be 25 feet. So that's saying the APs are mounted at 30 feet, and that's essentially on the ceiling. And our shelving goes up to 25 feet. See if we can get that entered here, 25. And now I just hit enter, and now that's changed that property. So now let's just do selected access points and select one AP so we can kind of see how that's going to affect the signal propagation.
Yeah, one thing to point out, and actually you showed me this, Jerry, when you're defining warehouse racks this way, make sure you get the width.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you do want, so when you define them as a wall, notice how I don't do, a common mistake that I see is you'll draw a box around the entire warehouse shelf. So this, we want to just, that's why I do like using the walls, is because you're just drawing a single wall, so it's easier, it's less to draw. So you're just drawing a wall down the middle of it, but then we defined the width of that wall right here under the settings. So you can see it's 6.5 feet thick. So we can define the thickness. So basically when we draw this down the middle, let's say, we're going 3 feet and a quarter inches each direction off of that from an attenuation standpoint is what it's defining. If I were to draw a box around this entire thing, then you're still going 3 feet in either direction off of that, and now you're going to have two racks that are overlapping, and that's where things get messy quickly. And then this is the attenuating factor here. This is saying how much signal is being absorbed as it's passing through that rack, passing through this wall in this case, but yeah, representing that warehouse shelf.
So one comment from Brian in the chat is, do you not need to edit the distance from the ceiling? Now, my understanding is that if you don't have if you don't have a ceiling height defined, you basically just get like an infinitely tall wall, right? The AP height is defined. The wall just goes up for forever, basically. I don't know, Jerry. I think you understand how Ekahau models that a bit better than I do, though.
I was looking at the poll results, so I totally missed what you were just saying.
Oh yeah, just a little comment from Brian. Do you not need to edit the distance from the ceiling entry? And I think that if you're doing a single floor, then no, you do not, right? It's just going to go up infinitely, right?
Exactly, yeah. So in this environment, I don't care about the ceiling at all because I don't care about the signal above the APs. All I care about is from the AP down. So I don't need to define anything with the ceiling height or anything like that. That only comes into play where we're stacking floors on top of each other. That's where the ceiling height is going to have an impact, because now the signal is going to potentially be propagating to the floor above. So we need to know where that lid is, where the ceiling stops.
I think the confusion is around the two different settings. One of the wall settings is that the wall from the floor extends up to the height of, right now Jerry has it defined as 25 feet. The one to the right of that next to it is the wall actually starts from the floor at this height. So it's not the height from the top of the wall to the ceiling. It's from the floor. This wall actually starts at X.
Right. You're basically defining the bottom, where the bottom of the wall starts, and then where the wall ends in height.
Yep. And you can put in both. So if you have like a floating wall, you can say, okay, this wall starts at 5 feet and then goes up to 20 feet, right? So it's technically a 15-foot wall, but it's floating, suspended in space.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And one other thing to keep in mind, especially in these kind of warehouse environments with these high ceilings, what are we visualizing here, right? We're visualizing the signal at 1 meter above the floor. And this is a common environment where you want to leverage this advanced feature potentially. So again, with that modifier key we talked about earlier, you can modify that visualization height. Normally it's locked at 1 meter or 3 feet above the floor. But if we want to change that, we want to see what it looks like higher up in the air. If you hold down that same modifier key, Control in Windows or Alt Option on Mac, we now get this hidden option here to adjust the visualization height. So let's say we want to visualize the signal. What is it going to look like 20 feet up in the air? We can change that. So remember, the APs are at 30 feet, the racks stop at 25 feet, and now we're going to visualize the signal strength here at what it looks like 25, or what did I say, 20 feet up in the air? Yeah, so this is what it would look like if you were on like a forklift and you go up 20 feet in the air. That's what the signal is going to look like. And I did start a new poll. It looks like quite a few already found that. More technical topic focused. The previous one was more around different verticals. And these are more technical kind of focused. And, these are just looking at some of the ones that we've covered more recently and kind of putting those up again if there's more interested in diving into those topics. But also, if you got ideas of topics that you'd like to see us cover that maybe we haven't covered yet, go ahead and put those in chat, and we'll make sure to add those to the list as well.
So, Jerry, as we're kind of heading into a little bit of overtime here, we should probably try to wrap up in just a few minutes. The next highest question up that I'd kind of like to tackle really quick is from Derek. Derek is asking about solving channel overlap issues efficiently. And I have some, I don't know, this is another one of my favorite things in Ekahau is I love to talk about how to solve channel overlap issues. And so maybe, Derek, I'll just show you how I do that really quickly here. So what I'll do is I will grab a radio from the list here. I'm just going to grab a Unify AC Pro here because it was on the list and it was easy to get to. So when you're doing predictive modeling in Ekahau, if we kind of go through and just place a bunch of APs here really quick. So I'm just going to throw a bunch of APs on this map. This is total guesswork as to whether this is good locations or a good amount of APs or not, but I just want to be speedy and quick here. If we look at that after I place a bunch of APs, it's going to look really happy from a signal strength standpoint. But if we go look at the channel overlap visualization, basically how many APs are sharing a channel, in each specific area, anywhere that's gray is where we have 2 or more APs on the same channel. So for example, this spot right here, there are 5 APs sharing the same channel above negative 85 dBm there, and that's bad. The way that I always solve this problem is I just use the channel auto planner. This is the easiest way for me to do it, and so what I'll do is click on that, and I might pull some channels out of my channel plan that I know my clients don't support. Like for example, if I have a client that does not support 136, 140, and 144, and if there's a neighbor that I know is on channel 36, I'll pull that one out as well, and then I'll just mash the create plan button, and Ekahau will go through and do an automatic channel plan for me. I don't know if you guys have had as good of success with that as I have, but I find that the channel auto planner, I find it to be incredibly quick and effective for just fixing channel overlap problems.
Yeah, I like to think of doing a channel plan when you're doing a design in Ekahau is not really so much this is what the channels are going to be, but what's the widest channel that I can get away with in this environment.
Yeah, good point. So if we move to like a 40 megahertz channel, we can just look and see like, okay, is using 40 megahertz channels going to be viable here? And if we run that to look at 40 megahertz channels, again, using the same channels, like, okay, now we're starting to see that fall apart a little bit. Of course, we're not going to be able to move to 80s here. But I'm actually going to say, hey, in this environment, yeah, we can do 40s here because we only have a tiny bit of channel overlap here in this corner, and I have 2 APs super duper close to each other there anyway. So yeah, that's a great point, Clayton. So I think we should probably go ahead and wrap things up. So Jerry, you want to throw our contact information here, and we'll get the webinar closed out and let everybody take off.
Sounds like a plan. Yes, let me get the slide pulled back up. Appreciate everybody for sticking around, even a little extra. It sounds like there's quite a few other webinars going on or starting now. So popular time of the year to be doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, let me get my screen shared here real quick. If there are any follow-up questions, anything we missed, feel free to reach out to Joel or myself, and we'd be happy to get those answered for you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us for kind of a casual, just kind of fun end of the year webinar, everybody. We really appreciate it. Thanks for just hanging out with us. That's one of our favorite things to do, is just hang out with you guys, to hang out with the wireless community, because we love all of you. You guys and gals out there, you're our best friends, and we really appreciate you a lot. So thanks for being here today. Jerry, anything else before we hit the end webinar button here?
I think that covers everything. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy New Year, all that good stuff. And look forward to seeing you guys next year. And appreciate you guys taking the polls and sharing your opinions on what topics you'd like to see covered.
Thanks, everybody. Bye now.
Thank you.